And joining us now on the legal case against Kirk's alleged assassin, former federal prosecutor Katie Cherkasky. Katie, great to have you here. Look, let's break this down between the state and federal, engage in a little moot court, if you will, it's not necessarily that they can't supersede each other, they can run in parallel, but what would be a likely strategy from the state in Utah, where there's a death penalty, versus federal, where there is also a death penalty?
Well, at this point in the investigation, we are made aware that the Utah authorities plan to file charges on Tuesday, and that makes the most sense. This occurred in the state of Utah. They clearly have jurisdiction over this case, and Utah does have a death penalty, which obviously is significant compared to the Luigi Mangione case, for instance, where the state of New York does not have a death penalty. So there was a federal prosecution also brought. In this case, they could also bring a parallel federal prosecution. There's different motivations for doing that. They do have to tie the crime to some form of interstate commerce to, actually charge it federally. But there's no double jeopardy sort of idea when there's a state and federal prosecution. They can both proceed at the same time or kind of coordinate with one another in terms of the priorities.
I want to know, I'm really curious. We've seen a lot out of Robinson, his social media, the conversations that he was having privately with friends. Does motivation play a role in the prosecution of this case? Is it relevant? Does it have any meaning in terms of how he will be prosecuted?
Well, motivation and motive generally is very popular in terms of when we're talking about murders, but legally speaking, it's not directly relevant. What is relevant is the premeditation and the planning that goes into these things, and a lot of that is also kind of complemented by the motivations. And it does sound like, even just from the preliminary information, that there was family members who had said that this individual directly said that he did not like Charlie Kirk, and obviously the engravings on the shell casings are clearly the rhetoric of certain individuals that have certain positions potentially. So whether that's conclusive or not in terms of his ideology, I guess that is something that the investigation needs to look further into. But yeah, the premeditation is what we're really looking for in the planning.
Typically, and not typically, but a lot of times the death penalty is a negotiation tool for prosecutors. In this case, if it plays out as alleged, as laid out in the charges, and they were able to get everything in place, is there a likelihood or a possibility that he might take a plea deal in some form, or would they even offer it? I mean, if they have him dead to rights?
Well, that's a great question. And so certainly if there is a death penalty that's on the table, like in this case, more than likely, the defendant could choose to take a deal or try to offer to plead guilty to take the death penalty off the table. That can be dependent on kind of the stage of the case as things develop, as the evidence comes forward. I mean, obviously it looks like here, based on the reports, that he has confessed and that there's corroborating evidence to support that. So it seems like a rock solid case. Things do happen in cases, and there's procedural issues that come up and whatnot, and investigative issues. So depending on the posture of the case, that could drive the decision of both the prosecutors and the defendant. But certainly he could always offer a deal. Whether they'd be motivated to take that, that's another question altogether.
We were talking in the break before you came in about whether or not he acted alone, and it seems like he acted alone from his comments, but is it possible there were other people behind him? And how will the government go about looking at that? Is that something that they'll be motivated to look at?
Well, that's a great question as well, because there have been reports that he seems to have acted alone. It's very early in the investigation, and I think it could be a little irresponsible to conclude that so summarily. They definitely do need to look further into any connections that he had. The government often wants to charge a case that they know they can prove. They know that they could potentially prove this aggravated murder based on what they have at this point. Now, obviously, he's presumed innocent until they do so, but in terms of connecting other folks and whether there's collateral charges, it's certainly going to be part of the investigation. And if they have his communications online and a lot of these witnesses that seem to want to talk about their conversations with him, that could get them a very far way. But yeah, at this point, I would say it's not conclusive.
Well, I just want to say one thing before we leave this, and he has not been prosecuted yet. He is innocent until proven guilty. We're still waiting for that. Horrific crime, and I'm sure we will get answers quickly. Katie Cherkasky, thanks for helping us out today.
Thank you,
Thank
Katie.
you.